Joining me, Jack Berkman, Republican strategist and host of Behind the Curtain with Jack Berkman. Catch him every Saturday night on the Radio American Network and Sunday afternoons at 2 on WMAL in Metro D.C. Also, Mark Levine, nationally syndicated radio talk show host and a state delegate-elect for the Democratic Party in Virginia. Congratulations, Mark. Catch him weekdays at 3 p.m. at marklevinetalk.com. More than 2,000 days after TransCanada first applied for State Department approval, a decision is made on the Keystone XL pipeline.
The State Department has decided that the Keystone XL pipeline would not serve the national interests of the United States. I agree with that decision.
Many Democrats were pushing for Obama to reject the pipeline. Mark, are you happy with that decision?
I am, but there's really no surprise. Frankly, I think this has been telegraphed long ago. What this does is it allowed Canada to sell oil to China more cheaply. Basically, it would raise our price of gasoline. There already is a pipeline there. And frankly, we need to get away from oil. We need to get away from tar sands. We need to get to more renewable energy. And this was a step in the wrong direction.
Right, as Larry Kudlow says, Mr. Obama likes windmills. Just doesn't like fossil fuels.
I like
all.
windmills
Jack,
too.
Windmills for everybody.
Yeah, I like windmills too, but they can't do anything. They can maybe supply 0.5% of the nation's energy if you're lucky. I mean, this would have enabled us to decouple from the Mideast. We're almost out of the Mideast. Nobody realizes that we're currently dependent on the Arabian Peninsula and Saudi Arabia. If we can get more oil coming from Canada and this country, the United States can decouple itself from the Mideast.
But Jack,
with
the oil
the
wasn't
exception
coming
of Israel
to us
altogether. The president has turned his back on this. He's also turned his back on tens of thousands of jobs.
Jack,
it's a very foolish
35
decision.
jobs. There are 35 permanent jobs. But let me say this. The oil wasn't coming to us. The oil was going to the Gulf Coast to be shipped to China. It wasn't Canadian oil for us.
Well, right after the announcement, Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio vowed to reinstate the pipeline if he wins the White House. Jack, should Republicans make another push for Keystone? Would they be successful?
Oh, I think they would. I think if we hold the Senate, they will. I think if we can add a Republican White House, I don't think there's any issue with it. There's millions of dollars behind this. There's a lot of money given to a lot of campaigns. I think this politically, Morris, I don't think there's any chance this won't happen if you have a Republican president.
All right, let's move on. Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson is facing tough questions about his past, and now a bombshell report from Politico. Carson admits that he did not receive a full scholarship to West Point. In fact, he never even applied. The story about West Point was a major part of his book, Gifted Hands. There are also major questions about his violent past that he's admitted to. Jack, could this unravel Carson's campaign?
Yes, it's serious. I mean, the media is already starting to analogize it to Joe Biden's plagiarizing a law review article back in 1988. In some sense, this is more serious. The violent past and the temper, all that is nonsense. I think all surgeons have somewhat of a temper. My brother's a surgeon, I should know. But in terms of when you lie about West Point, that's a very serious issue. Does it knock him out of the race? I don't think so, but I do think it knocks him out of the front runner status. I think Trump, the main beneficiary of this, is our friend Donald Trump.
Mark, are you and your Democratic friends sitting back, smiling all this time?
You know, none of us took Ben Carson seriously to begin with, but I agree it's a very serious thing. You know, Ben Carson's whole story was this dynamic of he attacked a friend of his with a knife and it hit the belt buckle and the knife broke, and then he stayed in the bathroom and talked to God and chose a new life. It turns out that story itself, the sort of fundamental narrative of his campaign may not be true. He isn't clear whether it's a friend or it's a relative. Now it comes out the West Point. Religious people liked him because they saw him as this guy from Redemption, and it looks like a lot of this was made
You have
up.
a little bit of what we can all call the Brian Williams problem here with Ben Carson. But here's the thing. The biggest problem he has, Morris, the biggest problem he has is all he really has to sell is his story and his character. He's not a senator. He's not a sitting governor. He doesn't have a political past. Remember, even though it's an anti-establishment year, fundamentally what he's selling is his resume, his character, his past. Once that's tarnished, a guy like this doesn't have anything to sell. That's the potential problem.
Well, on Friday morning, Carson confronted CNN over the phone for questioning his past, and things got heated.
This is a bunch of lies. This is what it is. It's a bunch of lies attempting, to say that I'm lying about my history. I think it's pathetic. And basically what the media does is they try to get you distracted with all of this stuff so that you don't talk about the things that are important, because we have so many important things. And, I'm not proud of the fact that I had these rage episodes, but I am proud of the fact that I was able to get over them.
Yeah, he went on to accuse mainstream media of manipulating his words. All right, Mark, we'll wrap this up soon, but what do you make of Carson's outburst?
Well, this is about as loud as an outburst as he can give. He's generally known as the sleepy candidate. Look, I'm sure this is a fundamental problem for Ben Carson. As Jack said, he is running on his biography, and if your biography turns out not to be true, this is far more serious than anything Joe Biden's done. I think Ben Carson has peaked, and it'll be downhill from here.
All right, Carson isn't the only Republican presidential candidate facing tough questions. Marco Rubio is under fire for his finances after Donald Trump said this.
Marco Rubio has a disaster on his finances. He has a disaster on his credit cards. When you check his credit cards, take a look at what he's done with the Republican Party when he had access, what he had to put back in, and whether or not something should have happened. You'll understand it.
And then Rubio fired back with this.
I find it ironic that the only person running for president that's ever declared a bankruptcy 4 times in the last 25 years is attacking anyone on finances.
Well, he also said the only debt he has is his mortgage, and he was cleared of wrongdoing in 2012 by the Florida Ethics Commission, but critics continue to ask for more documents. All right, Jack, you've been a critic of Rubio. Do you think he has something to hide?
Well, I think in part. I think, first of all, the fact that Trump is attacking him and going negative against Rubio shows you that the Trump campaign thinks Rubio is its main competitor, not Carson. I think that's right, so it's probably smart what Trump is doing. The charges against Rubio, I think, are fair in part and unfair in part. What's unfair in part is this business of saying, well, you don't do a good job with your rental property, you took money out of your 401k. All that is kind of personal to him and silly and really not, I don't see it as a public issue at all. Those are family issues, his own private matters. Now, what I think is a public issue and what could be a problem is this business of the $10,000 that he claims was put on the wrong credit card, put on the campaign credit card by mistake. He does have issues with how he has used his campaign money while in the Senate and also while in the Florida House as Speaker down there. That part of it is serious. That part of it, Morris, we have to hear more from him.
All right, many have compared this scandal to Hillary's emails. Mark, are these credit card statements much ado about nothing?
I think they are serious because it's not just his campaign credit card. There are allegations that he took the state house credit card. He actually used Florida taxpayer money for his own personal Christmas
party. That's an allegation, though. We don't know that that's true.
If that's true, that is a very serious allegation. I say this. I say that Trump says Rubio has problems with his credit cards. Rubio says Trump has problems with bankruptcies. They're both right. Both Republicans are right. Let's give them both a chance.
All right, let's switch gears to next week's debate lineup. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and former Governor Mike Huckabee didn't make the main stage, while Senator Lindsey Graham and George Pataki didn't make the cut at all. Jack, is it time for some of your candidates to drop out of the race?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Pataki, the media shouldn't be giving him, he's raising no money. He's kind of like the Jim Webb of the Republican Party. I mean, Lindsey's raising no money. He's a nice guy. Yes, it's time for this field to narrow. I think it's a very kind of unhealthy trend. I don't want to see, if there's an expectation every race that you're going to have a dozen or more Republicans pouring in, it could deter some good candidates from running. For instance, our friend Paul Ryan, who was my candidate, who was a person I would have endorsed for 2016, chose not to run because I think he very wisely foresaw what was coming. I just hope this isn't a trend that lasts too many more elections.
Now, all eyes will be on Jeb Bush during the next debate after relaunching his campaign with a new slogan, Jeb can fix it. Now he's pledging to fix himself and Washington. Mark, do you think it will work?
I do not. I think Jeb is stuck with the baggage of his family. Just yesterday, or this week, his father condemned Dick Cheney, condemned Donald Rumsfeld in a way that he really hasn't before. Remember, they served both father and son.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, yeah, he's the baggage of his brother. I think Jeb's campaign cannot be fixed. I don't think he has even the personality of his brother or his father. He doesn't seem comfortable going on the attack. He doesn't seem comfortable saying nothing. He just doesn't seem comfortable running for president. I don't see how his campaign, other than money, will
we have huge agreement.
I think what was said of Hillary could be said of Jeb Bush as well. He's a payphone candidate in a cell phone world. Jack, are you ready to predict yet who will get your party's nomination?
I'm ready to call for, no, I'm not. I'm not. I think it will be Trump. I don't know that, I can't make an endorsement or a prediction. I think the every trend is suggesting Trump right now. I am ready to call for Jeb Bush to get out of the race because I think he's becoming an embarrassment to himself and an embarrassment to his party. I don't think his campaign understood that when you have a campaign slogan, Jeb can fix it, the double entendre. I think they missed that. I think they thought somehow it would be perceived as Jeb can fix the nation, but it's being perceived as Jeb can fix his own campaign.
And he can't.
When you tell the nation, when you tell the that's a double entendre. It's being presented that way. I don't think they had any idea.
And I don't think he can fix it. I don't think he can fix it.
Just turn it around. It will fix Jeb, is what's going to happen.
He'll be fixed.
Before we go, let's talk about George H.W. Bush. The 41st president is blasting key figures from his son's administration, specifically Vice President Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld. The elder Bush said they were too hawkish when advising W. All right, Mark, so who was responsible for the Iraq War, Cheney or Bush?
More Cheney. You know, Democrats have said this all along. I said this on my radio show for more than a decade. The person in charge of the presidency, particularly its foreign policy, was Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld. I think George W. Bush was just following orders, and they were very bad orders, very mistaken orders.
I interviewed Rumsfeld one-on-one years ago, and I reminded him that he told the public that in the invasion of Iraq, they would all welcome us with open arms. He denied that, but the fact checkers thought it was right, said it was right. Jack, what do you make of this? Who was responsible for the war? Was it Bush or his advisors?
Well, all of them. But first of all, I think the Iraq War was a success. I think it was necessary.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I think it continues to be a success. On the politics, and
it's
I think
a success.
A success for who? I mean,
for ISIS? For ISIS, it was a great success.
No, I think it's a success. We have brought some level of democracy to that region, to that country, for the first time in 5,000 years. For the first time ever, you have talk radio in Baghdad. I mean, that's a wonderful bequest from
I don't think Iraq is a
world.
success for anyone, particularly the Iraqis.
Well, we won't get, but remember the whole idea that democracy would fall like dominoes. Instead of Vietnam being the communist domino theory, this was going to be the democratic domino theory.
It took a stable dictatorship and brought us to anarchy.
But anyway, back to the main point, Jack. Would you blame these problems on the hawks within the Bush administration or lay them at the feet of Bush?
I think his father said it right. It's both. The buck stops there with the president. I think the one thing you have to remember is that these are old cleavages within the Republican Party between conservatives and moderates. Bush 41, I love him, but he's a moderate. He's always been on the left side of the Republican Party. He and Gerald Ford made comments similar to this before he died. Ford passed away in 2006. In 2003 and 4, he blasted Rumsfeld. He blasted Cheney. He told the media he was calling them, saying, "What are you doing? You know better than this, that, and the other." This is an old cleavage and an old argument that has gone back in Republican politics 40 years about which direction is appropriate in the Mideast. There's nothing really new here.
The American people have long judged the failure in Iraq to be a complete failure. There's no one calling for that war to continue. And I got to tell you, I think George H.W. Bush was basically following where the American people are right now. We know that after September 11th, there was no reason to invade Iraq.
That's a wrap. Mark Levine, Democratic strategist, Jack Berkman, Republican strategist, the best political panel on TV. Thanks to you both.
Thanks, Morris. Thank you, Mark.